Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Jennie Edwards. Jennie is founder and video content queen producer, and she helps entrepreneurs create and share their message online to make a bigger impact in the world. She teaches how to show up confidently and with vulnerability in alignment with your branding and values. Over the last 12 years, Jennie has run a successful business of empowering her clients to grow their audience, connect authentically, and gain greater clarity of their goals and vision. So welcome, Jennie.
Thank you so much, Tammy.
It's exciting because it's funny, in our pre-talk, we discovered that we had met at New Media Summit, but we'd also connected through Greg Duswalt's Rockstar Marketing Bootcamp. So it's interesting how sometimes people are in your orbit, but you just don't know it until one day you find yourself talking to them about something that you're really interested in. And I'm really interested in video and in telling stories because it's so important today. So my first question is, tell me more how you got involved in this particular area of marketing with video and storytelling.
Thank you. Well, I have been doing my photography and video business for the last 12 years in San Diego. And I began my personal development journey 10 years ago, and really seeing that the power of telling your story and knowing what parts of your story to tell, because it's easy just to be rambling on, blah, 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 blah. And then you lose connection with, if you're in a face-to-face conversation with someone, or there's really no purpose to the story, or you're venting, it's coming across that way. And so I, over the past 5 years, have realized there's so much power in helping people shape the right parts of their story to tell, and what parts of their, do they want to be relatable with their prospective audience. So for entrepreneurs, obviously everyone does different things and has different gifts and talents, but it's what parts of your story can you really focus on that would be relatable so that you can develop more connection with your clients.
That's a really good point. And that's something that I personally have struggled with, because some coaches and mentors will say, yeah, tell the most dramatic story or that awful, awful thing. So you end up going, okay, well, do I really want to tell people about that? And we've heard people who have told the stories, where they were molested as children, or they had, somebody tried to kill them, or domestic violence, things like that are very personal, and they can make you relatable. But how do you determine what stories to tell? Like, should you really be sharing those types of stories, and will that backfire on you?
That's a good question. And obviously it's different for everyone. And depending on what their goal, their purpose is for telling that story. And I think that's important to start with is, what do you want? What's your overall message? And by defining that in greater clarity, what is my message and what am I putting out there? Because I really believe that it's tapping into that personal power to be willing to be open and vulnerable and share, and the courage that it takes to do that is very important, for me, and to see the transformation that I've in my clients that I've worked with. over the past few years is to see what comes out of them as they are kind of like cracked open and sharing this vulnerability of them, and to move past any shame that they might have experienced in the past, or people telling them, oh, don't tell people that, or keep that secret or hidden. But just the opening up process can really help them reveal so many other aspects to create a more clear message for what they want to share.
It's interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, maybe the act of telling the story to you in a safe environment, and you share the story, and then you can help to say, well, that is part of your story. Now let's take the lessons from that and come up with, did that make you stronger? Or did it make you more resilient? Just the other day, I heard someone saying, all they said was, I had a really rough childhood, but I find that it makes me more flexible because I guess they were part of the foster care system.
Oh.
And they said that's all they said. They didn't go into any detail other than I had a really rough childhood, but I find that in my business, it helps me to be more flexible and to move without being stressed out about it. So I thought, wow, that's really interesting about how this person, they didn't share too much, but yet they took the good out of that bad, of that. They could have been a trauma type situation, but instead they saw the good in it. So
yeah,
you mentioned photography and video, and of course you're talking about people being empowered with their story. So when you work with someone, how do you start with them?
So first, I really like to elicit their values. What aspects do they value? And to get clarity of that, because when's the last time people ask you, what do you value? It's not a regular topic of conversation, but to be able to hold space for people in that regard and help them define that also helps them share what aspects of their clients' values do they want to be in alignment with. And maybe if it's someone that's, let's for instance, involved in wellness or healing, by being aligned with what their values are and what their prospective clients are, it really helps propel them into sharing, their vulnerable experiences, maybe regarding their own health, their own transformation, and how they can open up.
It's interesting that you brought up healers and spiritual type people, because a lot of my audience is in that world, that they're heart-centered entrepreneurs, or they actually work with healing and other types of, I don't want to say they're not all modalities, but a lot of people are working in the spiritual type businesses. And one of the things I find with them is they have a hard time transferring what they do, because let's say if you're doing energy healing, for example, they have a really hard time, like, how do I put that out there with the value so I can get paid, because they're dealing with that, a lot of times, the money block. So if you're working with people like that and you ask them about their values, what might some of their answers be, and how do you use that to help them?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously the goal with the video marketing is using it as a tool so that you can develop trust. You can build trust with your clients, and it's like something that's going on 24/7. So when that prospective client is in pain at 2 a.m. and they're online and they find your video and it speaks to them, and then they want to take action. So, because people want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And sometimes in conversations, in one-to-one, you meet somebody at a networking event, you don't have time to get into the depths of your personal story and transformation, right? So by using the video as a tool, it's really powerful. And that also leads to what you were speaking about. People want to get paid for what they're doing. And I also teach about a monetization blueprint. So kind of outlining steps to monetize your message. And a big pivotal part about that is credibility. So when they see you as a credible source that can help provide a solution to their problem, they're much more willing to take action and pay you for finding that solution.
Well, again, I know a lot of people in the healing profession, and sometimes I actually have to. It's like they're way up here because they're very spiritual and they're very higher level consciousness, and so they want to be operating at that divine level all the time, and they don't realize that they need to be grounded. And it's interesting because video, and I'm a big proponent for video marketing. And I told my clients, use video because you have the visual, you have the audio, you can transcribe it, and it can be out there working for you, just like what you said, 24/7. If somebody is up at 2 a.m. and they see your video, you may have the answer to their problem. And they can see you, so they make that connection. I have a client story where I made a video, and it was so funny. I wrote him. I sent a video to this doctor, and he actually responded and made a personal appointment with me. When I got to his office, he walks up to me, "Oh, Tammy," and he hugs me because he felt as if he knew me. From the video, and that's how strong videos are. You also work a lot with people who think about it. Okay, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I am an older woman, I'm overweight, and I'm going, oh my God, I have to lose 50 pounds before I can be on video. I'm like, oh this, oh that, I don't like my voice. All of these things. How do you work with people so that they use this vulnerability to its best and highest use?
That's a great question. Yeah, there's a lot. That's really common for people to be apprehensive about showing up on video and not wanting to be seen or heard. And I encounter this all the time. And I think part of the process is like meeting people where they're at, and I'm a very accepting person, and I like to kind of share some of my own stories because it's storytelling that builds the trust with my clients too, of kind of what I've gone through in my own personal development and how I grew up being very shy and an only child. And I was not feeling accepted by kids at school, and I was bullied. And it was obviously a huge growth journey for me. And so now I get to tap into my own personal power and hold space for others to undergo their next step of expanding their comfort zone, being willing to show up as who they are, their authenticity in front of the camera, and really owning that. And that in and of itself is huge for a lot of people.
So I want to ask a few nuts and bolts type questions, because I know people are probably going, what could I do to get started? Now, that's one question. How many videos do I need? How long should my videos be? There's all of these questions that pop into your mind, because let's say that you say, okay, Video, I'm willing to do it. I'm going to forget about how I look. I'm going to step out of the fear and do something. So what should I do initially to get started? Can I do it myself? Do I need to work with you to go into a studio? Or what could I do just to get started, to practice, to get over the fear?
Great question. Well, I think, one thing that's easy is everybody's got one of these phones that you can start practicing with, and to get used to just, looking into a camera, even if it's a phone, and looking into it and imagining that little lens is your favorite client or somebody that you want to work with. And so by imagining that, it starts warming you up to what's possible. And then, probably the next step you could do is recording yourself, watching it, and seeing, and also developing a neutral skin on that, like not judging yourself too much, because it's a process, right? We are our own worst critic. But by just practicing it and just, seeing yourself maybe with a fresh set of eyes, then, you could also do a Facebook Live to really step into like a next level thing, for just showing up and being. I know for myself, I didn't want to do a Facebook Live without having, makeup on and looking nice. And then I realized nobody cares about that stuff. They want to hear my message. So I started, hey, when something really amazing was happening, or something really dramatic was happening, or something really raw emotionally, like that's when I need to get on and share. Like that's what I needed, because that's connection, and that connection builds trust. So I think those would be some good first steps.
And all of the things that you were just saying, the makeup, the hair, the clothes, again, the voice, the body image, are all things that, if there was a time to say, just get over it, this would be a good time to say that. But those are all things that every single person who's ever taken the step, like, for example, I've made videos, and some of my videos, I'm not kidding, I'm out in my backyard sweating bullets. I live in Florida. The perspiration is running down my face. I'm wearing clothes that are awful. My hair is awful, but my makeup is, probably non-existent. And one of the funniest ones is I'm there saying, Facebook is not a fad. And that video still exists out there. And then I have some other ones where I'm standing out there and I have a camera on a tripod, and the cat's rubbing on the tripod, so that it's going doop, doop, doop. And then in the background, the roosters are crowing. And how I handled that, because I couldn't control at that time my environment. It was what I had. I didn't have anything fancy. So it became Tammy down on the farm. They could see the animals. I had one of my videos, my horse came up behind me and she's literally moving her lips. And some of these things were hilarious.
Like Mr. Ed.
And our voice and everything. So I'm really glad to hear that you are confirming that people should just do it. And I think the reason why doing a Facebook Live is so powerful is because people, sometimes nobody shows up, but there's normally a few people show up and they will say hi and they encourage you. And if you are sharing really good information, people really do appreciate it. You talk a lot about being vulnerable, being authentic. And again, those are things that kind of go along with the values. When you talk about, the values that you talk to people about, do you suggest that people use a script when they do their videos, or would you recommend that they just have talking points and just speak?
Well, I think the first part is to start with, a general script. Actually, my husband works alongside with me too, and he has a background in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So we work with entrepreneurs to optimize their script, and we can help them insert different powerful phrases that help land the message more deeply in the listener's subconscious mind. That helps them, take bigger action and really absorb the story on a deeper level too. So I think it's good to start with a script, but not be too attached to getting it word for word for word, because that's when it starts sounding like a robot. And people ask me a lot, oh, do you use a teleprompter? Well, I like it. I like the message coming from the heart more. I think that's really where and your message. If we train it ahead of time, many times, so that it just is integrated and it comes across more naturally. And people are going to want to listen to you, when it's coming from the heart rather than just on a piece of paper like a robot.
It's interesting because when you were talking in your robot voice and all of that, those are all things that are very entertaining. When people use your voice inflection, and it's interesting that you talk about your husband helping people with the NLP scripting and things like that, because those are all things that as you grow and develop will really be helpful in helping you to close, or, if you want to use marketing terms, get people to want to buy from you because they know, like, and trust you. And that's a common term. So if somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Well, I would like to gift the listeners a 30-minute monetization blueprint, which is a Zoom call that we can schedule. And they can access the schedule by going to my website, which is yourdynamicstory.com/schedule. And they can book a time for that. And I'll share some insights during this inspiration session on how they can actually use, kind of where they're already at for their marketing and up leveling it to the monetization. So that is a really, I've noticed a lot of great feedback from people that I've worked with about how this has helped them.
Well, anytime you can talk to somebody who can give you a monetization roadmap to something, and I don't know if I said that right, if you called it a blueprint or a roadmap or what, but anytime you can talk about monetization and have a plan to get from all of this content that we're producing and using our story, which again, we hear about this from, we're bombarded with tell your story. But even, I've been in business a long time and I'm still saying, okay, well, which story is the one I should tell? And that's going to make a difference to other people as it relates to what I'm doing. Because that's another thing I think sometimes people will tell these stories and they don't connect the dots to what it is that they're trying to do. So if you had one really big tip that we can leave our audience with today, what would it be?
Good question. I would say be committed to taking action, even if it's a baby step, a small step towards that bigger picture. And the more that you can, take small steps, the closer that you're going to get to your goal, and sharing your message more powerfully and creating a more positive impact in the world.
So what would that a little baby step be?
So it could be, relating to video, it could be just, writing down an aspect of your message that you want to share, or practicing it on your phone, let's say, or doing a Facebook Live for the first time. And the more comfortable that you are in getting your message out there, the more, transformation and inspiration that you can share with the world and make a bigger difference. Because that's what I love helping people do is with especially conscious entrepreneurs, like lots of people that are listening right now, sharing their message more powerfully and showing up and creating more change.
I think you're right on target. So I'll just put the challenge out there to everyone. Do one baby step. Like Jennie said, go make a little Facebook, practice on your phone, brainstorm what your topics, what your message might be, brainstorm your story. But I think the best baby step that everyone can take is to connect with you, Jennie. And all you have to do that is go to your website. Can you repeat your website and how people can connect with you again so they can take a baby step with you?
Yeah, because it's so powerful to be guided on this process and have someone that kind of can direct you to what aspects to focus on and help you feel even more confident in front of the camera. And my website is yourdynamicstory.com/schedule.
Perfect. yourdynamicstory.com/schedule. And I'll have that live link in our show notes. And again, Jennie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you. And again, I love video marketing. And I think that what you offer to people, that clarity to really hone in on your values and that story that you can share so that people know, like, and trust you, because that's going to equal more impact, more influence, and of course the big I, more income. And we love that. So thank you, Jennie. This is Tammy Patzer. Everyone, go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.